selling deltas anywhere to be seen, and they were seemingly supported by a buy-side book. So they were seemingly supported, but when you've got buy deltas and supported by a buy-side book, of course, that could easily be a spoof order, couldn't it? So you can see that that was taking place during the early stages of this cash market open into these first few phases here. The buy book seemed to be getting thicker and thicker and thicker. And obviously that took us to this huge block trade that you can see at the bottom edge, huge block trades kicking off at the bottom edges here. And obviously there's a lot of business getting transacted, and there's a big sell surge came into the markets at that stage. You see the delta completely flipped out at that stage, didn't it? Delta buyers, whatever, simply looking at it going, I've got to get off this trade, or I've got to get short into this, whatever it is, it happened, right? As simple as that. It's very, very obvious with the huge red circles, huge sell blocks. Now what happened next? Well, look at what happened next. If this was going to be bullish, this bid that's in the market should have replenished at these levels, right? You understanding this now? Should have replenished at these levels, at least relatively close to these levels. If not at that level, perhaps here, we should have seen a big book replenishment after a lot of buying in this phase here. But there wasn't, was there? Actually, what happened was there was a significant withdrawal of bids, into a flat price area. Well, if you've got a significant withdrawal of bids into a flat price area, the higher probability, and we discussed this morning, the higher probability is that this market is going to get toasted. And the market did get toasted. You can see that the market was easily toasted, and the bids haven't came back in yet during this process. And it's about matching the bids and the offers, or the change in the bids and the offers, with the delta. And this is obviously one of the key parts to any auction situation. It's not just about how many people are bidding. If you've got 500 people all buying, is the price going to go up? If you've got 500 people all buying, is the price going to go up? Well, it's a loaded question when you think about it on the information I've given you, right? It's a loaded question. Because naturally you'd think the price would go up, but what if I said there's 1,000 sellers? So you've got 500 buyers and 1,000 selling into that buying. It's offers at the top edge. It's not actual physical sellers. Well, the price can't go up, can it? Because the price is just going to get absorbed. The price is going to get absorbed into that selling of 1,000. So it's incomplete information. Well, the delta on its own is incomplete information, isn't it? On its own, the delta gives us an idea that this looks like a very reasonable buy trade. Of course, the value isn't telling us otherwise, but regardless of that, this looks like a reasonable buy trade because there's buying deltas and there's a very strong buy-side liquidity book. And it still looked good at this stage, but then the deltas started to throw away their positions. They reached their aptly described puke point, and the deltas threw away their positions by the bucket load at this lower print here. And obviously what we now try to do is try and establish, now that they've thrown away their positions, is it now a buy trade, right? Well, if it was a buy trade, what would happen is that there would be buyers in here, net buyers coming into this market, and what we would then see is we'd see a big pop on the buy side order book, which would give us illiquidity to support the buy opportunity coming off the lows. That's not what happened. We didn't get a huge buy surge. We got some, but we never got the buys supporting the liquidity as the price went off the bottom edges. And that's obviously something we start thinking about. We start saying, okay, that's not so good. That's not so good. As the price drops, the liquidity should get bigger. It's a balancing mechanism at the end of the day. And take a look at what happened when the price dropped through this phase here. Did the liquidity get thicker? No, it stayed very, very thin, right? It stayed almost neutral. There was no change to the narrative in terms of liquidity at any stage during that drop. So that means it hasn't started yet. The buy auction hasn't actually even started yet. So if the buy auction's not started yet, what's the best trade? The best trade is to be selling on pullbacks, selling on pullbacks, selling on pullbacks during those phases. It should make sense in terms of auctions, guys. An auction has two sides. There's a buyer and a seller. In our auctions, they've got two sides. In an you know, in a normal auction, the seller is usually somewhere else. They've put their car into auction or whatever. There's usually only one seller of that car, obviously, as you would expect, and there's buyers, potentially 500 buyers. So it's a slightly different auction, but our auction's a two-sided auction. There's buyers and sellers constantly competing for the position to be in place. And all we're looking at is what is the auction telling us. Well, at the moment, as the price is dropping, we're starting to slowly start to see some bids coming back in after the market had went offered against some buy-side liquidity, and that gave us perhaps a last squeeze into the bottom edges, and we'll see how it plays out from here. See how big these bids get as the price tests down into the day low, of course, which is now running along the bottom edges. Value is still bearish, so I'm certainly not interested in buying it yet, but that's something that we're paying attention to just now, guys. Sure, it's just the bid the depth net depth position, just the same as any other net depth position on the other markets. Okay, where was the easy trades, guys? You can see there was an easy trade buy, for example, perhaps on the bond. There was nobody buying, there was nobody selling at the bottom edges, so there might have been an opportunity for you to buy up some bonds down here. Yeah, 169.16s. There was another easy trade on the euro dollar. Do you see it? There it is there. You can see there's no buyers into the high price at all. Not a single sign of any life at the higher prices. Very, very easy trade. And that's pretty much what we've seen in terms of the easy trades. Possible easy trades setting up here at the top edge of gold. And that might have caught your eye. And that's pretty much been the easy trade so far on the screens that are in front of you. The easy trades are when the pink and the pink and the blue lines are both going in the same direction against the price, and that gives you the easy trade narratives. There's just no buyers or sellers anywhere, and that's telling us what's going to happen. And that sell on equities that we've just talked about, I would expect it to go lower. It has just gone lower, surprisingly enough. And we're obviously going to be watching that drive lower. There has been a big pickup in delta in the book strength. And we're just seeing if that book strength can match the sell deltas, and we can maybe take a little punt on some Qs. As soon as that starts showing up, we'll maybe take a little punt on some Qs. Price of 470s at the moment, so I'm quite interested in maybe going for a bit of a jaunt. But what's the value doing, guys? Well, let's take a look at the value and see what the value is doing. How good is the value for a buy trade? How excited are you about bidding into this this current move lower? It's not the best, is it? It's certainly not the best. But the big strong bid in the book, telling me that there's at least going to be a profit take off of this price. At least a profit take off this price. So, you know, obviously that's enabled me to take a quick scalp trade against that storyline, and I've made myself a few $1,000s because of that reason. And just get a scratch back into place because it is a scalp trade against the trend and against value and against everything else that we hold dear. So we're just playing at profit taking there, trying to capture a little bit of book, and then just seeing each time we go lower whether the book gets thicker. If it does, we'll wait for the jam, we'll buy it. If it gets thicker again, we'll wait for the jam, we'll buy it. If it gets thinner, we simply won't be buying anything because the book is not supporting the reversal trade. Make sense, guys? Still relatively good book here, so I am watching for any types of sellers. I think this is obviously where it's going to start seeing some action, but I'd like to see a big blow-off sell before we start getting into the business end of a big buy at this price area. You know, but it's certainly able to be bid off the bottom edges here quite easily, and I'm making a few $1,000s every time I'm buying these at the moment, but it's not getting any traction at higher prices just yet. Okay, so if we catch up with the story that we've been seeing on the charts, I'll just bring the story up to date with what we're seeing just now. Okay, so here it is now. So you can see the difference in what we're deeming to be a big, thick buy-side book against nothing, right? So this was the book that we had just been experiencing. Then we actually saw the book going net offered. Okay, so the book went net offered for that phase there, and the reason why the book went net offered is probably to balance out this bid on the delta, right? So one balances out the other. And that's okay, that's great news. The buyers are now trapped on the uptick off the weak lows, right? So the buyers are all pouring into this uptick off the weak lows, which means there's a barrow load of stops below here. So when the market goes offered here, that tells you there's a barrow load of stops ready to throw away their positions if the price breaks into a new day low, which is what we expected to happen. And sure enough, there they are, all throwing away their positions as if they're crazy dudes. Exactly what we thought would happen, right? Exactly what you would have imagined would happen next. So that's great news. Okay, so what happened next? Well, you can see what happened next. As we drifted lower, you can see the net book buying came pouring in, not just a small uptick in buying, it came in pouring into the markets, didn't it? And when the net book buying poured into the markets, obviously I start watching the amount of delta that's coming in behind this trade. And you can see the amount of delta that's coming in behind this trade is almost zero, right? The net selling that's coming in now is almost zero. Look, we're actually turning back up at some stages. And with that delta turning up and with this amount of book buying coming in at these lower prints, I started to look for the opportunity to lean against that story into the bottom prints here. And I've been able to pick up a little bit of business off the lows and make some easy monies. Is that a pretty straightforward storyline, guys? What do you think? Is that a pretty straightforward story? Making a scalp? I'm not saying the market's... Remember, the value is not going bullish at all. And yet I've still been able to buy off the low prints and not lose money even when the value is not bullish. It's just to try and show you that even with the value against me, I'm still able to make money depending upon how the order flow is starting to set up for this auction. And it might be a rubbish auction. It might turn into be the bottom tick price because maybe if the value suddenly changes, there's going to be a lot of people that haven't had any bottom edge value. So they're all going to have to surge into this market and I'm going to get a brilliant rip for my money off of this price, right? But it's all part of the process of understanding the auction. And that's exactly what we're understanding here is this part of the auction. We'll cover this in classroom if anybody's still doubting or in question about what the hell is happening. What the hell is even that?